In this tutorial, we're going to go through a complete cycle from start to end, just correcting for fuel at this point. We're do additional videos going over, timing changes and corrections for that and all that, but I wanted to go through a complete cycle of what it takes to at least correct for your fuel, which makes a huge difference in the performance of the bike in itself. Go ahead and open up C3. Let's go ahead and open up the tune that you prepared in the past sessions. You might have already taken one pass and made a correction. That's great. Use that one. And we'll just carry on. Now, on this one, I have not changed the main AFR yet. I'm just went out and took some logs. So let's go ahead and pull up the data center. Pull up the log I just created. Again, be sure to pick the data you want. In this case, it's a 2018 bike, which has the 08M0 ending for the checksum. Now, this has some strange looking things. For starters, right here, we're pulling a lot of fuel out. Now, this bike rode about 100 miles, so the long-term trends came up. So it's pulling out a ton of fuel, and we have engine speed here, so we're at idle. It's pulling out a lot of fuel. But this is some really funky stuff right here on the long term. Let's just take a look at this real quick. Now, if you notice, short-term trims have gone to 0, so we're not going to correct for this funky stuff right here. This is a long-term trims that have been saved for that certain point of operating condition, but this is doing something a little bit different at this point. Let's pull up some curves and see what's going on. Let's look at the timing curve, the timing bit. Let me find the silly thing. Actually, I can't find it. Here it is, primary timing active bit. I rarely ever use that, but look at that. It's at 0. Remember what we said? If it's at 0, then there's something going on. So this is the reason this is at 0. There's no fuel trims, and the timing bit's at 0, so we're probably in deceleration condition right here. We're back out of it because the primary table is back in effect. It goes back out here. That's probably a shift change, so forth. So for grins, let's pull up the gear shift position. Let's go ahead and do that, and sure enough, that's what's happening here. Let's zoom in here. Look at this. The primary bit, since the throttle closing down, it went into deceleration mode. Clutch in, shifting down, shifting down, shifting down. Then clutch back out, probably moving now, or maintaining speed. Again, getting ready to accelerate, shifting there, and then coming back up. So this is a prime example of what you want to look for. If there's something that just doesn't make any sense, look at your primary timing. Again, I don't look at that much. I probably should. I look at other things, and in this case, the gear position told me exactly what I needed to know. The bike was in deceleration. So let's go ahead and reset the table. Graph axis back to what I'm accustomed to. Go ahead back to your C3. We have our equation loaded in, but if you haven't done that already, go ahead and load in that equation I supply. From this point forward, we don't have to redo that. C3 remembers that is the equation that's loaded in. Let's go ahead and perform the corrections. And we're done. We've corrected the comp tables, and we have corrected the VE table. Now there's a few things we could do here if we wanted to. We could interpolate here like that. We could interpolate. What I'm doing is I'm selecting a change value and to another change value, and there's one or more cells that weren't changed, so I'm going to smooth that one out as well. Those are good changes to make. I could go a little bit here too, since these changes are bracketed between these two, and go ahead and smooth that over like that. All right, I like those. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. Just go ahead and continue tuning, and eventually you'll hit those cells anyway. Okay, I'm going to save this as a DJT. I've already made folders for this, so I'm just going to put that there and call this example V1. Now this is the information I like to put into the tune notes. This is pass 1. I have done one correction to the VE. I've done one correction to the IPW comps. Haven't touched ICF tables. We can down the road. I'm most likely not going to do it on this tutorial. Corrected timing, no. Knock control, I have not changed. I think I will change the Target AFR and expand it on this time, since that was a pretty good log. So let's go ahead and check what was done, the changes and the percentage that we made. Go ahead and pull in the tune that you had just corrected with the new tune that is corrected, and let's compare it. These are the changes that we extrapolated, but you can see some pretty big fuel changes here. A lot at idle. So we got a ways to go on this bike. Same way with the front and rear cylinders. Oh, they're pretty well balanced. Took 2 percentages out of the front, and we put in 2% additional fuel right here in the rear. The rest of it's pretty close. Now this is a TS111 with a stage 3 cam in it, so it's the tune we started with was pretty close to begin with. Yours would be way different if you're starting that way. Now, we said we're going to expand the Target AFR, so let's do that. This is the runtime Target AFR. Here I'm going to go ahead down to, down to right at 70 over to 6,000, right there, 14.7. So we now have a very large operating range that is calling for closed loop up to a red line condition and just about wide open throttle. It's hard, especially on a 111 and also a 116. It's very hard to get above 70% load. You might get up to 80. You aren't going to get to 90. That's just a lot of load on the engine, and we don't have the horsepower to get up to there. But anyway, let's go ahead and save that. And we're going to go out and take another log. Now we have just done that, so we're going to come back. We're going to load up the current tune that recorded that log. In this case, it's example V1. I'm going to go ahead and close the fuel off. And let's go ahead. I have copied the logs over to my pass 1 table. So that's here. I took 3 logs. Let's load those up. Here they are. Long-term fuel trims look a whole lot better than what they did in the last one. We've already made some good strides. Let's go ahead back to our tune lab and let's make our corrections. you're going to see a much larger area of the VE that has been corrected because we've expanded the Target AFR. Okay. You can see we hit some stuff up here. Still have a lot of holes here, but we're going to take care of that in a second. Let's do the front and rear cylinders. Okay, now I don't usually take the, I usually don't extrapolate on the comp tables. I am going to do this table though, because we have some room for improvements here. Go from here. Again, you don't have to do this. If you're not comfortable with it, don't do it. Just keep riding and correcting, because it will take care of itself over a length of time. A VE table should be smooth. It should be nice smooth values. You can see this one's coming down. This one was a little higher, but that one required none. It's right at the point it wanted to be. Here's one that we could correct. If you look at these values, that makes sense. Go ahead and do this one. It's coming down from 80 down. Let's do this one. Makes sense. All these are making sense. That makes sense. This makes sense. So now we have, let's do this one. Now we've smoothed out our table, our VE table, and we're ready to make another run at it. In a second, let me make sure we get it all. This region here is typically your deceleration region. Here's one here. Let's go ahead and hit it. And another one. Okay. We already said that one's already corrected, so nothing. But if you look at the 3D model, there's no spikes. It's nice and smooth. Looks pretty good. Okay. Let's go ahead and save that. We'll save this as V2. Normally we would create that folder, but we've already got it. And save. And I already have the STK files in those folders, so it's not asking to create it. Okay, we flash this into our bike. We go out and we ride again, trying our best to hit as many combinations of load versus RPM as possible. We want to fill this table full of actual data. So we come back here, we close the old data. We have now copied over our files into this directory, and here we go. I want to load those. Long-term trims are looking good. Of course, we aren't putting many miles on it, so I don't expect the trims to come into play. That will come down later. We're still making some pretty big corrections on fuel. So let's go ahead and run this again. It's going to take at least 10 cycles to get this bike dialed in. Did better on that one. All right. So we're going to come back in here and look at anything we could smooth. Let's smooth there, and here, here, and here, and here. Let's do these. Again, if you aren't comfortable with this, don't do it. It doesn't matter. You're eventually going to hit these cells and it will do it for you. I just like to speed the process up a little bit, but you're in no hurry. I probably overstepped on that one, but that's okay. All right. We're hitting up to 5K. Ideally, it'd be nice to have a little bit more there. Here's one. Putting in some fuel here. We're taking some fuel out here and here. Overall, it's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and save this. It's going to be V3. So we go down to our third table. We would have created that directory or folder if it had not been there. Well, I have not been keeping up with this. So let's make sure we do that so we know which pass we're on. Let's go ahead and load in V2 and look how the tune is progressing. Okay. A lot of fuel being taken out here. 5%, adding some in here. And but overall, I'm pleased with it. Let's look at the front. Taking out a little bit there. Putting in a little bit there. So we're sitting here balancing out the fuel between the front and rear. We're going to end up with a very smooth running engine by the time this is all said and done. Yeah, that's looking great. Okay, we go out, we flash V3. We go out and we do our ride. Again, while we're riding, there's a couple things you want to do. You want to hit all these tuning spots. You want to find some hills. You want to find some flat land. You want to find maybe a parking lot where you can go into first and second very slow and concentrate between idle to maybe 2.5K, up and down in first and second gear. I like to find a road that's perhaps 25 miles per hour, get into fifth and sixth gear and just kind of putt along in a very low RPM range, but a higher load on the engine. I like to go up hills in a higher gear and then shift down, varying loads. I like to apply, maybe get into third or fourth gear and apply slight drag on my rear brake. Do not lock that brake up, but just a slight drag and keep my throttle even, keep my RPMs even as I load down the bike. And what you do is you'd be sweeping the load range, say from 1.5 through this range here, and then 1.7, or well, be realistic, up around this range. You'll be sweeping these cells here and here and here. So that does it really good. If you have 75 mile per hour interstates, get on down to the find you a entry ramp that is fairly long. Get in third gear, start it out around 20 miles per hour, and just ramp it on up slowly. Just ramp it on up until you're right at red line, which is around 85 miles per hour as you get onto interstate. That gives you some really nice data, just like a dyno pull. So those are things that you can do. So we've gone out and we've collected that data. We're going to come here and pull it in because we have loaded it into, copied it over into the pass 3 directory. Fuel's still hitting high, but we're going to correct for that. Run our correction. All right. Let's look at our tables. Are looking good. Now there's some max and mins on these tables. Your mins are like, well, let's just find them. Your minimum value is 0.75. Your max value is is 1.248. So those are the values you want to see here. You know, something around 1 is a happy medium. It's right in the medium, and that tells you that the VE table is well balanced. But don't get too concerned unless you're hitting maxes or mins. Then you got to do something with your scaling factor on your injector. Either raise or lower it, or adjust your engine displacement slightly. But the majority of the folks out there will not have that issue. Back to the VE table. Let's look at the corrections made. Again, we could smooth out some stuff. Getting on up there. Things are looking pretty good. Just go through here and correct it. Hit some good cells there. We have opportunity to do that. So let's go ahead and do that and come down and do this. And why not? See how that looks. I'd rather be a little fat than a little lean, but it'll take care of itself. Let's do that one. Got some here. Again, ideal table will be a real smooth flowing table. Our Indians have a very nice smooth VE plane here. You just won't see spikes and peaks. Got one there. Let's do this one here. And once again, if you don't want to do that, don't do that. If you hit this one, what you're going to do is send it back to the stock value. So, you know, worst case, if you hit a button you don't like, just close it, open it up again, open up the tune that you had just wanted to correct with a fresh copy of it, and just run your equations again. No big deal. You haven't lost anything. Okay, let's go ahead and save this. Don't want to do that. We're in 3, so we want to save it as 4. Again, I've already had these preloaded, so it makes it a little bit more complicated. Pass 4. And then that's saved. Now let's go ahead and open up V3 and see how the tune is looking. Large corrections here. That was probably me doing that. The corrections it's making, it's looking pretty good. Look at that. These have dialed in really well. Your anything below 1 is excellent. Your fuel differences in fuel can be well more than 1, typically 3. So we're really shooting for anything under 5%, but since you're learning how to tune your engine, you do this until it's just perfect, like this here. Okay, you go out and you load V4, you repeat the cycle, go out and run your little route, shake it up, try a few new things, then you come back, load in V4, come back and load in the graphs that the logs that you have just done. And they are here. Load them in. Again, we're still getting some high points. That's okay. We're just halfway through tuning. This one is pretty good. Still taking some fuel out at idle. Okay. If you save it before you look at the VE table, you will lose the change, what you see here. If you want to do some interpolation between data points, you don't want to save it first. You want to go ahead and do that, because all these bold values will be lost. Won't be lost, they just will not be, they'll be just like the save values here. You won't see them. Again, if you save it before you do this, just pull up the version 4 again and just run the corrections again. No big deal. Nothing lost. Slowly, slowly coming in. See how this one looks. In beating a horse into the ground, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. You're not going to hurt your tune process. It might just take a little bit longer to tune. No big deal. All we're doing is guessing when this does this. We're just guessing what those cells should be based on what these known endpoints are. But it does let the tune converge faster. Just do it within reason. Okay, let's go ahead and save this. Into 5. Pass 5. 5 corrections on the tables. Let's take a look at what has changed. Okay, I did that one in these, but again, look at this area. It's looking really nice. This area is looking really nice. This tune's coming along really well. I think at this point I'm going to end this video. This is a lot to take in. The next video we'll pick up on finalizing the fuel and the trim. We'll be at least 5 more cycles before we get to that point, and so I don't want to keep beating this in. Just this is a good background on how to get your tune going. Couple notes. We've expanded that Target AFR. That means your power band has been greatly reduced, and you do not want to go out and race your bike with someone else, go up and spend the day through the mountains running really hard and so forth. You want to concentrate on tuning your bike. If you need to go out and have a long ride, a pleasure ride through the mountains or whatever, go ahead and restore your Target AFR back to what your base tune is. So let's look at that so you know. So we're on 5. Say I got a ride I want to do. Bike's running pretty good. It's just not finished yet. So let's go ahead and let's actually see what we've done. We have pulled a ton of fuel out, haven't we? A ton of fuel here. This thing was really rich. Added fuel here, but that could be just me interpolating it. Doesn't matter. That's a decel area. But in any case, to restore the main fuel, I want to go ahead and put that back in there. So copy to the base. And let's go ahead and say save V5, run. Come back here and say yes. Now, if you do this and you go out on a long run before you come back, take some logs, because this data here is your cruise and operating range. Don't throw that data away. Just take some logs as you're out riding for the day and come back and make corrections and make a new EX-V6 file. And if you're ready to go ahead and tune your the larger operating range again, just come back in here on that one and select it, and you're good as gold. Just save this as V6 and say you haven't restored it. This will be 6. Just made some corrections. There you go. Now you're ready to go back tuning again, and you have just added some good a long day of riding, its parameters, its operating conditions back for corrections. So nothing wrong with that. But you haven't been out all day with a very expanded operating range. Again, only use these values in your main Target AFR when you are concentrating on tuning your bike. Otherwise, go ahead and restore this to good values and run your bike and be happy. And that concludes this video. We'll come back and look at what it takes to finalize this tune.